So my challenge to you is most people will not do the 12-hour walk, yet it can be one of the best things you can do for yourself. And so you should consider being one of the ones that does it. Welcome to another episode of Everyday Badassery. I'm your host, Christine Lozada. I'm traveling in the Bahamas because I'm burnt out, like I talk about in my episode with Yancey. But last weekend, I had the opportunity to do the 12-hour walk. And in my episode with Blake, in episode 25, we talk about, to be honest, some motivation for myself because I was getting some perspective about his own walk. And I did the walk the next day, and it was an eye-opening experience. And I've given myself the week to kind of think through what's happened. And in this episode, I'm sharing with you 12 of the learnings that I had after my 12-hour walk to inspire you to consider doing your own 12-hour walk. But if you're new here, welcome. This is a traveling podcast meant to inspire you to be just 1% more badass today than you were yesterday. And one of the things that I think is amazing about Colin O'Brady's 12-hour walk is that it's accessible to everyone, and it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly 12 hours of walking. It's just a chance for you to disconnect from the world so you can reconnect with yourself. And you'll learn that I totally broke the rules and made it my own. And so let's dive into some of my learnings. The first one is that solo travel is a must for everybody. While I was out there doing this 12-hour walk, I realized I'm just so comfortable with myself, and I'm so comfortable being alone and spending time with myself. And I truly enjoy my own company. And so I really thought during this 12-hour walk, I would feel really bored at times, like bored out of my mind, like, oh my gosh, how much time is left? Which, by the way, I didn't allow myself to wear a watch, and I didn't allow myself to track my workout through my watch. And so it was just this chance to be with myself. And I realized that after years and years and years of solo traveling, it has taught me to really enjoy time with myself. And it's something that everybody needs to try out at some point. There are too many people who tell me, oh, I would love to solo travel, but I just can't, or I want to, but I don't know how to do it, or just get out there and do it. It doesn't have to be in another country. It doesn't have to be somewhere exotic. It can be in your own backyard. The number of people who've told me they want to solo travel, but they've never taken themselves out for dinner alone in a show and, you know, a nice walk on the beach. Start small and learn to enjoy time with yourself. It's made my 12-hour walk such a pleasure to take. Which, by the way, if you are watching today's podcast episode, you're going to get a whole smattering of videos from my 12-hour walk, which will be turned into a vlog-style video if you want to kind of live that day with me. It was an adventurous day, to say the least. The next learning that I had is we always want to be 100% prepared for 100% of the things life throws at us. But to be honest, we're just not. So embrace that and just dive right in and do it anyway. In other words, the night before the 12-hour walk, I was feeling the same way I feel the night before so many of the races that I've done. I've ran 5Ks to triathlons to century races, 100-mile bike rides, to fill in the blank, to obstacle course racing for years. I've done so many races. And I just wanted to be prepared with, you know, my bag laid out with my food and my nutrition and my drinks and my clothes and my change of clothes and my sunscreen. And to be honest, I ended up going out with some local Bahamians the night before. I was invited to dinner, and I thought it would be, you know, an hour dinner. I'd fly my drone at sunset and I'd go to bed super early. It ended up going late, like close to midnight. And I woke up the next day 30 minutes later than I expected, totally ill-prepared, feeling hungover. And you know what? I was like, this isn't going to stop me. Just go do it. Just do it. And if for some reason you're feeling unwell or whatever it is, we'll adjust and we'll figure it out, but just get out there and get started now. And I want to take that mentality forward to everything I do. A perfect example, this podcast episode I'm filming right now. I would ideally like to be in the other room, but it's 100 degrees in that room, and this room has air conditioning. And you know what? I'm a little bit sunburned right now and uncomfortable, and I have traveler's diarrhea, so I probably have to, pause this halfway through and go take care of my business. But you know what? I'm doing it anyway. And it's never gonna be perfect. And whatever ideas we have in our head, I'm not saying let go of it, but know that you can trust yourself to adjust as you need to adjust. That's the thing, is that we expect perfection sometimes. And when it's not that, it's like the whole thing dissolves and is ruined, when really it should simply be roll with the punches and trust yourself to overcome whatever it is. We ain't ever gonna be 100% prepared. My next learning was around living bolder, living bigger, and living more badass starting now. In other words, I found myself wanting to verbatim follow the rules, because there are rules with the 12-hour walk, and all of that is linked in the show notes of this podcast episode. But there are things like, be disconnected and go for a walk, and then there's just a lot of things. And don't get caught up in the minutia of what you should be doing or what you're supposed to be doing. And I realized I needed to take a step back and think about the bigger picture of things to realize, I needed to break the rules, and I needed to make the 12-hour walk what I needed to make it, because that is how I want to do this 12-hour walk. So in other words, you're supposed to walk for 12 hours or as long as is comfortable for you. And this was the first day in the Bahamas. And I've been in the Bahamas now for 18 days. This was the first day in the Bahamas where it was insanely perfect out. The water was perfect. When the water is perfect like that, it means the land is awful, absolutely awful. There's no wind, it's hot, the bugs are out. But you wanna know what's happening on the water? Clear, see-through to the bottom, pancake, glass, no waves, like fish everywhere. It's perfection. And as I pried myself away from the ocean and I started putting on my tennis shoes, and by the way, I only pack these tennis shoes, and I'm trying to, me, like I'm carry-on only. Like I pack super light. I pack these shoes just for the 12-hour walk. And I'm starting to put them on, and I'm like, like I feel like barfing inside. I can't believe I am gonna tear myself away from this perfect day. I'm here in the Bahamas, living for this moment on the water. I'm here in my happy place by the ocean because I'm burnt out and I need to be in and near the water. And I had this gross feeling in my stomach as I was putting on my shoes. And I went out and I walked. I walked for 3 hours. And normally, and this, I started at sunrise. Normally when you come back, by now, Mother Nature has kicked in, the ocean, she mad, there's waves, blah, blah, blah. But no, I came back, going back to the traveler's diarrhea thing. I came back to use the bathroom, refill my water. And when I looked outside and I walked down to the water, I was like, whoa, it's still glass. It's still pancake. It's still perfect. There's fish everywhere. And I was like, I need to take my 12-hour walk on the ocean. I feel safer there. When I'm out walking, oh my goodness, there's stray dogs. Not every stray dog is a bad dog, but the stray dogs that are bad dogs are bad dogs. And you don't, in my opinion, it's not comfortable to be going for a walk through a secluded neighborhood with all the stray dogs around you, barking at you like they want to eat you alive. And the other thing, the other people who want to eat me alive, aside from the dogs, are the Bahamian men. And it's just part of the culture to be very aggressive with women. And I was not feeling these walks. But you know who really was? The mosquitoes, who love me, who were just loving the heck out of every part of my exposed body. Which, by the way, I went and purchased a long sleeve shirt so that I could cover more of my skin because I'd be in the sun all day. Anyway, aside from my covered arms, the mosquitoes were just eating me alive. Anyway, my point is to live bolder and badder and bigger and the way that you want to live. And just everything in my body told me, yo, you need to be on the water. You need to break the rules and be on the water. Step back, think bigger picture. It's not literally about walking. It's about being disconnected, to reconnect with yourself. And the best place for me to reconnect with myself is on the water. And what ended up happening, and you'll see this in my vlog style video if you choose to watch it, it will be linked in the show notes of this video, of this podcast episode. You'll see me losing my shit. I started crying as soon as I got on the water because I was so overwhelmed by how beautiful it was, and I was so overwhelmed by how right it felt. And it was so easy for me to stay disconnected and just be so connected with that moment, with the water hitting the board, with paddling, with looking down at the fish. And it's not like I just sat there and chilled on the water and drank a daiquiri or something. I paddled almost 10 miles. Man, my shoulders were killing after that. Anyway, I made the right choice. Be bold, break the rules. Rules sometimes are meant to be followed, and a lot of times, you gotta make your own rules. So live bigger, live bolder. This next learning is a reflection on how important it is to spend time finding moments in your life. It doesn't have to be every day, it doesn't have to be every week, but finding moments in your life where you are regularly being uncomfortable in your mind. Find ways to really push yourself mentally. And I kind of referenced this before with racing, but I talk about this with Blake Brinker. I talk about it as mind fuckery, which I apologize. Actually, I don't apologize if you don't like that word, because it quite literally describes exactly what I'm talking about. Nobody in their right mind should do 100-mile bike races. I mean, props to you, to all the, racers out there. It's amazing, good for you. But this is a long time to be sitting on a bike. And if you're unfamiliar of how long a 100-mile bike race takes, depending on your skill and depending on how many hills there are, it can be anywhere from 6 to 12 hours. And so let's just call it 8. 8 hours sitting on a bike, non-stop pedaling. Your mind will go to crazy places. And for me, the reason why I started racing a bike was because I wanted to train my mind in that way, to do a repetitive movement where it just becomes clockwork, right? Yes, you're totally tuned in to the road and you're navigating and you're making sure you're not hitting things, and you're adjusting based off of how much height, or whether you're going up or you're going down. Yes, but at the end of the day, it's pretty mindless. And by doing this mindless activity that is very strenuous on your body for a very long time, your mind goes to very, very dark places. And my mind has gone to those dark places so many times. The places where I put my head down while I drop down into, with the handlebars, if you're unfamiliar with a racing road bike, into your drops. You go into your drops, head down, and you are just pounding the pavement. And for me, when I was at my peak, I could hit the flats at 22, 26 miles per hour if I had no one else around me helping me to, bike in a group. When you bike in a group, you can bike a lot faster. So biking alone under my own power, that's how fast I could go. And I would just hammer the road for hours and hours and hours. And my mind, I almost get teary-eyed just thinking about it right now. My mind goes to really freaking scary places in those moments as you're pushing your body and trying to maintain clarity. And I'm not saying, okay, go get a road bike and go do these stupid races. What I'm trying to say is find moments or find activities where you can push your mind just a little bit out of your comfort zone. That might be as simple. You know what's crazy? Doing those 100-mile bike races felt equally as difficult as the 3 minutes that I would spend meditating in the yoga classes that I used to attend in San Francisco. I'm like, I hated those meditation sessions. I gained the discipline of, okay, for these 3 minutes, I'm in it. Like, we're gonna do this thing, and I'm gonna do the weird breathing thing, and I'm gonna let my mind go nowhere except right here and be quiet. And it's uncomfortable, and it was only uncomfortable for 3 minutes, 3 times a week, or whatever it was that I attended. So find those moments to be uncomfortable in your head, which leads to the next one, which is finding moments to be uncomfortable in your body. And I have a really amazing friend who's been on this podcast, Gaby, aka GG McKay. She is in the episode for, she left the corporate world, sold everything, traveled the world, and is becoming a writer. Hell yeah. But one of the things that she and I talk about is think about the most transformational moments of your life. The big moments in your life in which you like really took a step forward and you became a better person, where you had this amazing aha moment or epiphany. Now ask yourself, during those moments, were you laying in bed in a comfy robe? No. And if yes, please send me a message and tell me what your life is like so that I can replicate it. But most of those moments come out of being in moments of discomfort or out of your normal environment. And so pushing yourself regularly outside of your comfort zone in your body is really important. And for me, I've had moments, for example, I hiked Mount Whitney with my family, with my sister and my parents. And there's a lot of ways to hike Mount Whitney. We chose to hike Mount Whitney as an out and back. If you don't understand what that means, you go from 7,000 feet of elevation to 14,500 feet of elevation over the course of 22 miles. We did a 22-mile out and back. That's gnarly. That's a lot of elevation. And one thing about me is that I will black out when I am in altitude. I black out regularly when I ski. It's not something I'm proud of, but I hallucinated at the end of that hike and I crawled. It took me 45 minutes to crawl the last quarter mile. Crawling a quarter mile over the course of that amount of time is like ridiculous. But my body was pushed to its limits given the altitude, given the strain, given the fill in the blank. And having those moments in my armor, in my back pocket, in moments like the 12-hour walk, I'm like, whoa, this easy. Like, bring it on. Like, I can do this for a really long time. Like, ain't no thing. And so I'm not saying you necessarily have to go hike Mount Whitney, but if you can regularly push your body to things of discomfort, it could just be from a regular workout. And, maybe you're like me and you do Orange Theory, and just for this one class, you're gonna run 0.2 faster. And that's not, that's not game changing, but it is game changing at the same time because you are incrementally improving. And everything, our big badass moments in life are all incremental from the small badass moments in our life. I couldn't just wake up tomorrow and hike Mount Whitney. There was a lot that went into it prior to that. Well, to be honest, not a whole lot of training, if I'm honest with myself. But there were a lot of other moments that helped me to not quit on the mountain. And so what are your regular practices to help you be uncomfortable on a regular basis in your mind and in your body so you can push through those challenging times and make a difference in who you are and just get what you want to accomplish? Ooh, I've got one more story on this one, which is being uncomfortable in your body while camping. I feel like everybody needs to camp regularly to remember why your bed at home is so awesome and comfortable. And yes, I camped in the desert while riding ATVs with my family, and there's just like sand everywhere. There's like sand in your shoes, sand in your socks, sand in your pants, sand is everywhere. And it's freezing out there at night. But I also camped in Ethiopia for 5 nights with hyenas running around and 40 mile per hour winds, so that if I wanted to go pee at night, like it was hard because, you know, I'm a girl and I need to squat. And when you squat and pee in that kind of wind, like it just doesn't go well for you. Just take my word for it in case you're wanting to test that out. So discomfort, all about discomfort. Okay, this next one that I learned. Curiosity and wonder make life 10 million trillion times more amazing. And one of the things that I learned while I was attending World Domination Summit, and I'm about to read, or rather listen to, the audiobook version of Gary Ware's book around bringing more play into our everyday life, is that as we become adults, we forget how to be playful, and we shun, and we think it's not okay to act like children as adults, when really that can be one of the most important things for our own happiness or for enjoying life. And one of the things for me is this 12-hour walk highlighted for me how truly playful and how truly curious I am and how much wonder I have. Because while I had like a general path for the walking portion of my 12-hour walk, I would constantly wander off the path and be like, oh my gosh, what's that over there? And like go find this area where there were like turtles and beautiful cranes and just this amazing view of this nature preserve. And I have discovered so many things in my life, and things that I either became hobbies and passions, or people who became very close friends or significant others as a result of being curious, of wondering about things and pursuing them, and we're being playful and trying something out. Because going back to what I said earlier about not being prepared for everything in life, another thing is when you're playful and you wonder and you kind of stumble with regularity, you learn to, as you get off the beaten path and, oh, I don't know, what's that? Like, oh my gosh, like, oh, that's not what I expected. You learn to be quick in trusting yourself and changing course as needed. And when you have that must go this way, must be on this course, must like blinders to everything else, you miss what's important. And so staying curious and staying playful is super important. This next one is a hard one for me to share, I'm gonna be honest, and I'm also gonna keep it 100, and if you're watching this, I'm going to overlay the video of what happened. It will also be in the vlog style video of the 12-hour walk that I will put out on YouTube. But the learning I have here is when shit happens, it's all about getting back up again, because it's life and shit is guaranteed going to happen, and you can choose to let it get you down and end everything, or you can choose to get back up again. And when I was on my 12-hour walk, I had a moment in which I was so dizzy. This was the walking portion of my walk. So hold on, let me just recap. So I walked for 3 hours, and then I went and I paddled for like 5-6 hours. I paddled almost 10 miles, and then I swam for a couple miles. And then I realized I was having like way too much fun and was like feeling guilty about it. Just going back to the, like, I shouldn't have felt guilty about it. I was totally disconnected and reconnecting with myself. But I was feeling bad about it because I'm like, oh my God, there must be so many people who are doing this walk who are beyond miserable. So I'm like, I should go walk again. So I went and I walked again. I was gonna go walk for a couple more hours. And during this walk, literally an hour into the walk, I'm so hot. Again, I described what it's like on the water versus what it's like on the land. It's miserable. It's so hot. And I sat down kind of overlooking the beach to drink some water and just try to like cool off for a second in the shade. And I'm sitting there, and this, I don't think he's homeless, but this guy approached me. And he got right up, like inches from my face, and insisted that he see my eyes. Like, oh, like, friend, hi, like, I want to see your eyes. And he kept coming. And it's one thing if you're like within a couple feet, you know, like arm's distance away, but he was coming into my personal space. And like, because of how I was sitting on the wall, I couldn't just like jump away from this dude. But I instinctively clenched my fist, and I was reaching for my belongings, which was my water bottle and my GoPro. I was reaching for my belongings. I'm starting to clench my fist, and I'm like starting to make moves to get out of there. And I wasn't sure if he was a threat or not, but he wouldn't go away, and he was really in my personal space. And so I'm like, no, 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 no. And then I start beelining, walking very quickly in the opposite direction of him and toward the destination I was originally going to go to, which was downtown Nassau, Bahamas. And as I'm walking briskly, I start talking to my camera about how frustrated I am about about constantly having situations like this. And in the process of that happening, he bikes right up to me, kind of startling me, and starts getting in my face again. And I immediately turn around so that I'm going in the opposite direction of which he was going. And I just start running. And I'm embarrassed and I'm sad because I was so dizzy and so hot at this point. Like, this was like the slowest run in the world. Like, I was not booking it out of there. I was like, anyway, that's beside the point. I ran out of there, and I ran toward the street so that if anything was up, I could like literally run into the street or something like that and be seen by lots of cars and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this situation could have ended my entire trip. I'm out here alone in the Bahamas. You have an option to, okay, I could have just flown home. Like, this trip is over. I did choose to let it end my 12-hour walk. I went immediately back, and that was just going to be it. And was I mad about the entire day? No. I knew that there were still great things that happened that day, and there was something that dampened it. And it doesn't mean I am downplaying the seriousness of what's happened, but rather I'm thinking about it in a way of, okay, that happened. I did the right things around like what I was doing to stay safe. I ended it. I got the heck out of that area. And that was it for that. But it's not going to make me afraid for every moment moving forward. Does that mean I'm more on my guard while I'm walking around the Bahamas alone? To be honest, I ain't walking around the Bahamas alone anymore. Like, I'm driving now, and when I'm driving, I'm super cautious. And I mean, the other day, yeah, I went for a 2-minute walk to go to the grocery store really quick, but that's about it. And that was in the middle of the day. You have a choice to let it end everything or adjust as is needed so that you can get back up again and keep going. The next thing I learned is about environment being everything. And so I am a firm believer in you are a reflection of the 5 people you spend the most time with. But I am reminded during my 12-hour walk, or rather, since half of that was paddling, how important it is to live and be in places that truly make you happy. I couldn't stop reflecting during my 12-hour walk on how many people I have in my life who I absolutely love, respect, and admire, and they live in places that they absolutely hate. Whether it means, oh, because I can get really amazing cheap housing, or it means, oh, because it's comfortable, and I've been here forever, and it's easy, and I know my way around here, and a lot of reasons that aren't good reasons to be there. And they could be so much happier somewhere else. And a lot of people will give themselves excuses to not be or not move to the places that will truly make them happy. And I just feel like your environment is everything. And while that might not mean you can get up and move tomorrow, it could mean how can you incorporate more things in your daily life of going somewhere that makes you really happy, or making sure the trips you take and the places you travel to are the destinations you really, really love. Because environment is everything for helping you to thrive and be the best person that you can be. The next learning I had was about the voice in my head. And this is something that I have been so tuned into, and I encourage you to do the same, which is start noticing how you talk to yourself and the words that you say to yourself throughout the day. And I'm going to share an example with you. A year ago, I went scuba diving with somebody, and she's an amazing diver, an amazing person, an amazing drone pilot. And we had a moment in which we went to go get scuba tanks, and then we went to the dive site. And timing is critical, because getting to the dive site at the right time, right before high tide, and before the rush of people come, from a parking perspective, is like really important. And she had forgotten at the dive shop to fill her own tank. We filled mine, we got everything taken care of. She forgot absentmindedly to fill her tank. And I was like, yo, no big deal. Like, if it doesn't work out with the parking, if we're not here perfectly during high tide, like, yo, we can roll with it. It's all good. This is a 10-minute diversion from the plan. Like, not that big of a deal. It's not like we're gonna miss the dive entirely. Because if you go diving in Florida during low tide, it's a difference between 100 feet of visibility and like 1 foot of visibility. Like, it can get really gross and murky in there. It's like diving in a swamp versus diving in the amazing Floridian waters. And while we're driving back to the shop, if I could take what she was saying out loud and turn that into what I was envisioning in that moment, I could see her in a boxing ring with herself, beating the living crap out of herself. Like, she was literally like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe you forgot this again. I can't believe you would do something like, I can't believe you're so forgetful. You're so stupid. And I'm just like, whoa, hang on. Like, are you listening to yourself? Girl, like, not a big deal. And like, let it go. And the whole ride to and from, she was just beating herself up. And this is an extreme example, but at the same time, it's not too different than how so many of us are with ourselves. We beat ourselves up. We are our worst critics. We are the ones that hold us back most often from achieving what we can potentially achieve. And I just realized that during my 12-hour walk, I have done a lot to really tune in to the voice in my head and be gentle and kind to myself. And so if you find yourself in your daily activities, oh my gosh, I should have gotten this done. Oh, I forgot this or that. Oh, I was supposed to do this. Like, yo, give yourself some grace and be nice to yourself. You can only do so much. We are only human. And I would say, let's take it one step further, which is not only should you be the nicest person in your life to yourself, like, don't let other people be nicer than you are to yourself. Like, you should be so kind to yourself. You should go beyond that and be your own biggest hype girl or hype boy or hype man or whatever you want to identify yourself as. But you got to be hyping yourself all day long, because who else is going to do it if you aren't? If you're not nice to yourself and you're not encouraging yourself, who is? Because we get to this toxic and scary place when we are just relying on outside forces to constantly be cheering us on or telling us, you know, we're great. Or I'll give you 2 examples. One is, I decided a very long time ago in my early 20s, which was not yesterday, I would no longer be friends with girls that can't go use the restroom by themselves while we're out at a nightclub. If you need somebody to, like, you know, hold your hand and you don't want to be seen alone in the nightclub, or, you know, you don't want to be seen as like this lonely person, like, yo, you gotta be more comfortable with yourself. Like, I don't want to go to the bathroom. It's gross in there. Like, go pee, wash your hands, come back, let's have a great time, meet you on the dance floor. But one of the things I learned in so many of these girls that I, you know, used to hang out with in my 20s, especially when I used to be in the fitness industry, is they would rely on other people telling them they're beautiful for them to feel beautiful. And that is a scary place, because I mean, these are some of the most amazing bodies I've seen. Like, we're talking like, you know, guys with 6% body fat and 10 packs, and girls that could still look elegant and graceful in a dress and, you know, pump out 25 pull-ups one-handed. Like, these girls were gnarly. These guys I worked out with and worked with in the fitness industry were gnarly, yet so many of them were the most self-conscious and had the least amount of self-confidence that I've ever experienced in my entire life. And relying on other people to tell you you're beautiful is a scary, scary place. In the same way that relying on other people to tell you you're great or that you're amazing or fill in the blank. I am currently listening to Will Smith's book. I definitely encourage you to give it actually a listen. He's the one that reads it. I'll link that in the show notes below. And it was fascinating to hear him come up in fame so young in life and not realize until his 40s that so much of his validation and his worthiness of himself came from external sources and didn't come from himself. He didn't learn to love himself in that way, be kind to himself, hype himself in that way until later in life. So fast forward through that now, become aware today of how you're talking to yourself. And if you catch yourself being a total jerk, that's all right. Be aware of it, mark it, and try to say something else immediately afterwards. Yo, didn't mean that. I'm so sorry. You look beautiful today. Which, by the way, if you're watching this podcast episode, I haven't brushed my hair in like 3 days. This next learning is around being disconnected, and that's such an important part. It's the crux of the 12-hour walk, completely disconnecting. And by being completely disconnected, I'll be honest, during my 12-hour walk, I was feeling overwhelmed. I could feel the amount of like comments and DMs on every platform I'm on social media, because I get hundreds of comments on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, on email, on Twitter, on like fill in the blank. Like, it's crushing every day. And one of the things I loved about the 12-hour walk was just turning that off. And the other thing I hated was knowing it was piling up. But it made me super hyper aware of how being overly connected can make you lose sight of who you should truly be connected with. And so I was reflecting during my 12-hour walk on the dark moments I've had as a creator, where I might be with someone, actually, Captain Boomies, she's been on this podcast episode, amazing yacht captain, make sure you check out her episode. There were moments in which I was traveling with her and I would just be voice responding DMs to hundreds of people who were leaving me messages on various social platforms. And she was just watching me, just being like, holy crap, you're a beast. And in hindsight, I'm embarrassed that I would spend a second of my time that I could be enjoying being in the presence of a badass woman like Captain Boomies, responding to people I don't know and people who don't care about me, who just want travel advice on various social platforms. And so I've learned that being overly connected can make you lose sight of who you should truly be connected with and being connected in that moment. And one of the things that I reflected on as well is circles. And Mel Robbins talks about this. And she talks about how she thinks of the people in her life in circles. And in the smallest circle in the center is, for me personally, my family, my mom, my dad, my sister, my nephew, my brother-in-law, Meatball. Those are the people in my circle I don't ever want to let down. I mean, I will. I definitely let them down all the time, sorry. But I'm going to try very, very hard to not let them down. And then the next circle around that, where it extends out a little bit. Who's in that circle? And I don't need to name my own for you, but I want you to think about your own circles and keep going out and out and out. So who's in your tightest circle? Who's kind of on the periphery that you really care about? Your good friends, your extended family. I love my aunts. Beyond that, like, all right, colleagues and friends that you also really care about, that you keep in touch with. And then let the circles extend out. And the way I think about it and the way Mel Robbins talks about it is, don't let the people down. Try really hard not to let the people down in your tightest circle. And as it moves outwards, like less and less responsibility toward these people. And I'm not saying like, oh, who cares about the people in the outer circles? I'm just saying we can only give so much of ourselves. It's really important, like in my moment with Captain Boomies, that I am giving myself to her in that moment and really enjoying myself and connecting with her versus spending time with people who aren't even on the circle and spending time responding to their DMs. And so being overly connected can be scary, and be aware of how that is making you act on a daily basis. And this one leads to surrounding yourself with the right people. And for me, with my 12-hour walk, it was with the people from World Domination Summit. So I attended that earlier this year. I've talked about it a few times on this podcast, but they all did it wherever they are in the world. We did it all individually and alone, but we all did it on the same day. And one of the things that we did was Colin O'Brady had set up a WhatsApp group, and we all started sharing where we're walking, like what our paths are gonna be, like, I don't know, what we're most excited for, whatever it is. And by having this team of people who are also doing it, it really encouraged me to do my 12-hour walk. And it's important, not just in the 12-hour walk, but in life in general, to surround yourself with the people who support and encourage you. For me on my 12-hour walk, it was the other people from World Domination Summit participating, which leads to my last reflection, which is a challenge to you, to be honest, to do the 12-hour walk. And you can go to the 12hourwalk.com and register your walk. It's about committing to it and saying, yes, I'm going to do this. And I already have a feeling about what's going to happen, because a lot of people have messaged me because I've been posting about my 12-hour walk. People see the value. Yes, we all need to disconnect sometimes. It's really important. People can see that they can do this. Oh yeah, I could do that. It's going to be a challenge, but I could do that. And then people will realize like, oh, I have excuses. My excuses are, oh, well, I'm busy that day, or 12 hours is too long, or the weather is not that great, or whatever the heck it is. So my challenge to you is, most people will not do the 12-hour walk, yet it can be one of the best things you can do for yourself. And so you should consider being one of the ones that does it. What an interesting way to spend a day in the Bahamas, but I did the 12-hour walk, and I encourage you to do the same thing. Don't forget the Badassery journal. The questions I asked you in this episode, boom, they're in there. Download that. It's free. Take action on the things that you're learning and the things that you're listening to, and go forth. Be badass, and we'll see you in the next adventure. Ciao.